Excellency, Honorable Governor of Maharashtra, Director General, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a real pleasure for me to be here, having known that this is the 11th session, the 11th meeting of INMARCO, and that continues to grow, and in particular, the relevance of the topics that have been discussed, not just today, but for the next 2 days. And it's about decarbonization and how much greener the shipping industry should be and has to be. And of course, this is just a few weeks before the next session of the Marine Environmental Protection Committee. So the timely of the discussions and the outcomes that you will have on Saturday are most relevant, and we exhort and we call from India to please share that information with the organization and the rest of the member states. Of course, decarbonization is high on the international agenda, and at IMO, that is no exception. In the last few years, since we adopted the initial strategy in 2018, we started to focus on the measures that needed to put in place. I'm going to do my best not to repeat the great presentations and the panels that we have throughout the day, but I hope that at some time you would allow me to make some references to key messages that I have taken from those presentations. You have heard already of the carbon intensity indicator, which starts in getting into force from January next year. We have already in place energy efficiency measures for new and now for existing ships. And of course, the operational measures that already have been working since 2011, when we started the process of regulating the decarbonization of shipping, and with the goal to reduce and before the end of the century, eliminate or phase out emissions from ships. When we started this morning, there were a couple of slides that showed us and demonstrated the need for shipping to take action on the decarbonization. Some of the slides with several question marks, which of course is quite relevant. And it is true that there's still answers that are needed from the organization, and I can guarantee and assure you that we are taking on board all those calls, all those comments, and we're working very hard with all the member states in order to achieve the results and provide those answers. But also, that same presentation demonstrated how the climate is changing and how it's affecting not just shipping, but society as a whole. And we are part of society. We continue to be called indispensable to the world, particularly after the COVID pandemic, in how we bring the necessary and essential goods to every single corner of the planet. That means that we also have the same responsibility to act. And there's no exception. It is 2.7% of the global emissions. But that's still a contribution that we have to make in order to save the planet and meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. This conference is touching on all the necessary areas that needs to be tackled in order to look at decarbonization, from the green fuels, from the different port actions that have to be taken. It has mentioned the green corridors that already have been established when the Climate Declaration was adopted at COP26 last year. The objective was of the establishment of at least 6 green maritime corridors, green shipping corridors by 2025. And up to last week, we already have 13 being established. And there's a lot more interest that is growing because the experience that is coming from establishing those corridors, the way that trading is going to take place, the way that the ports and the industry in general is going to prepare for the decarbonization, is going to provide more information and answers in order for the organizations to continue to improve the regulatory process. And of course, from tomorrow, you will hear about automation, safety, seafarers, necessary training, which of course is all linked to decarbonization. We cannot forget the workforce. And in this respect, last week, during COP, it was the launch of the outcome of the UN Global Compact, with a plan, the action plan, where this organization, as well as the ILO, the industry, and the UN, is following in order to provide recommendations of how and the actions that we need to take in order to scale up the training to have the right seafaring people on board the vessels, because they are also part of this process, and we're not forgetting about it. We're already working within the Maritime Safety Committee and the training and certification subcommittee of the organizations during the review that is ongoing of the SCCW Convention in order to address particularly this, how the new fuels will need to be safer, and how the crew also needs to be safe when handling those fuels, as well as at the port side, because we have instruments like the IMPG code that it's also going to provide the necessary information to keep everyone safe as we move to the transition on decarbonization. Digitalization and automation, which will also be discussed tomorrow, of course play a pivotal role, because with more digitalization and automation, we heard today about the shortened time that the ships need to be in port. Of course, this is going to excel. This is going to provide those mechanisms in order to achieve the same goal. So we're not working in isolation. And one of the things that I took note today as well were the actions that our host government, and thank you for the great hospitality, is also taking. We heard about the Maritime Vision for 2030, and the Director General spelled out some of the actions that the country is taking. I read personally before I came here about the first hydrogen fuel cell passenger catamaran vessel that is already being on the construction here in India. Those small actions that actually put India at the forefront of what is necessary to be done, also as a developing country, in order to be part of the solutions. The government needs to be congratulated for these efforts. All the investment that we heard today that is going to go to the port sector in order to enhance the infrastructure that will be key in order to handle the new fuels, supply them in a safe way. India is also a core member of the Zero Emissions Shipping with a commitment mission to phase out and to hold at least 5% of the global deep sea fleet made of ships ready for alternative fuels and for zero emissions by 2030. That's another great commitment. That's not an easy task for everything that we have heard today. But allow me now to just make some key points of the discussions that for me starts to answer the question marks that were raised at the very first presentation. And is, the pieces are there. We just need to put them all together, because we won't find just one solution for this. It's an array of solutions. It's how we all contribute, how we all do our part. We heard, for example, today that India has a net zero strategy for 2070. Again, it's beyond what already is within the initial IMO strategy. So that's already bridging the gap into what others are calling necessary for the shipping industry to contribute to meet the 1.5 degree benchmark for the commitments within the Paris Agreement. We also heard that the implementation of the regulations are key, and India is a key partner in implementing MARPOL Annex 6, and thank you for that. And of course, we continue to provide the necessary technical cooperation, capacity building, and support to the projects like the Green Voyage 2050 in order to meet those targets. The work that India is carrying out, not just on biofuels and infrastructure, but we heard about hydrogen and ammonia as well, including the safety elements that need to be analyzed, and the investment that is going on. We heard of the partnerships that are being agreed with other countries in order to provide that support. Because again, this is where the organization excels. This is where IMO bring the parties together in order to meet the objectives. One of the slides this morning as well mentioned that there was division at IMO. I beg to differ with that statement. The reason why I say that is because we all share the same objective. We all share the same commitment, which means that we only have different ways or different ideas of how to get there. But as long as we share the same commitment, we just need to put the puzzles together, understand the limitations that different countries have, how we can support those countries. Those that are ahead of us and actually are the first movers then can provide the necessary experience and expertise, share that with others, partnerships, investment, and we will be able to achieve the goal. Then we went into the energy sector, and I was very pleased to hear that the energy sector here in India is already working on developing e-fuels. It even mentioned about the price gap. And one of the key aspects that I heard today was, yes, there is a price gap today in comparison with the established fuels. However, there's a projection that between 5 and 10 years, the price gap is going to close because the demand will be there. And this is when the organization needs to excel as well. And by next year, by July next year, the member states of the organization has already made the agreement to revise the strategy and provide that clarity. And we will not rest. We will continue to work on the alternative fuels that are necessary to meet the goals that will be established next year. The technology, such as carbon capture, that we also heard today, the training that it will be necessary, and we're working on economic measures. Even India also submitted a proposal with other countries in order to contribute and enrich those negotiations, because it has been recognized that we need to find all necessary solutions, including economic measures, in order to support this transition, and in particular the support of developing states, small island developing states, and least developed countries. So there are great opportunities within the maritime sector and the energy sector, as it was mentioned today, and we just need to keep talking to each other, maintaining that commonality on the objective that we're all going to reach, because we have done it before. The organization has faced challenges before. The last one was IMO 2020, when we introduced the global sulfur cap. And it has already resulted in huge benefits for, in particular, the health of the populated cities around port areas. We can do it again. And that takes me to the continuation of the cooperation and the partnership that is necessary for all of us to reach our objectives. We need to capitalize on the opportunities. And this provides opportunities in great areas. Yesterday I had the chance also to be at the Maritime CEO conference about diversity, and this was raised there, because decarbonization is not just in one sector. We need also to learn from other sectors how they are doing, how aviation, transport, iron, cement, steel, they all going to need these fuels. The call from the IMO as well is that when the countries, and this is including India, also continue and develops the alternative fuels, that you don't forget shipping. And that you also put shipping at the top of the agenda when we need to scale up the amount of fuels that will be necessary for the most efficient mode of transport, of mass transport that exists right now. So I would like to call on enhancing the support that we all need. This is within the organization. Please bring your comments, your queries, the concerns, because they are necessary in order for us to address them, ideas, options, and the opportunities that we can all take forward and we can all benefit for it. Because since we share the same objective, we share the same planet, and we need to look also for the benefits of the young and the future generations. So let's continue to act upon it. Let's continue to address the concerns by finding the solutions, because it was mentioned as well, and you all know this. The shipping industry have faced challenges before, and sometimes challenges that are external to us, like the COVID pandemic and the instability that we have right now in the Black Sea. However, we continue to excel. We continue to find solutions. And this is the plea from the organization, that you continue to trust IMO to develop global regulations, looking into the needs from society in all the countries, in particular the developing states, and bring to us that expertise, those concerns, that information that would allow us to continue to improve our regulatory framework. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you, India, for everything that you're doing in supporting the organization and bringing forward solutions in order for all of us to achieve the goal of decarbonizing the shipping industry. Thank you very much.